Hello guys, today we are asking the question, why is it that when there is fighting going on in Africa or war going on in Africa, the West, the Western media will downplays it as a conflict, but this is war in a pure sense. But the Western media will say this is conflict. There's conflict going on in Congo or in Mali or in Burkina Faso, but in reality, this is war. But on the other hand, if they start having conflict in the West, or the West is involved in another conflict, they call it war. And in some extreme condition, they will even call it World War. Because when you think about World War One and World War Two, although some Africans, men and women, participated in this war, but Africa as a whole, the war didn't come to Africa, but they call it this World War. I don't know why it should be World War when all the war, not every countries were involved. In terms of country, I'm not talking about in terms of individuals, people, you know what I mean? As we see in what is going on in Ukraine, and now what is going on between Israel and Iran, it's all war. Even though it's not, what's going on between Israel and Iran now shouldn't be called war, it's conflict. I'm not saying that what is going on there is not dangerous. It's dangerous, but it shouldn't be called war. But they call it war, because that wars and rumors of war or war propaganda is an advertisement for the people that produces weapons and ammunition, because when you look at it, like most of the countries now, they are upgrading or enhancing their budget to meet the current crisis, especially in terms of war arms, most of the Western countries, they want to, their defense project, they call it defense, defense budget, they call it defense budget, but it's not really defense budget because it's an attack budget, because sometimes they will go and attack another country. But, for them to do this, they call it defense project is about, voting to spend more money on ammunition, sometimes a weapon of mass destruction. Where the majority of people in the country are suffering, but they are putting more money in the hands of those people that own this company that produces arms, and without a conflict, they cannot sell this arms. And sometimes people are saying, why is this conflict in the world? Because people set it up to be conflict so that these arms can be sold. You know what I mean? That's too bad for the world. You know what I mean? Because when you think about it, why should people work in a place or in a factory that are producing some weapons, and they know that these weapons are not going to be used to kill animals? They will use to delete people, and they're still doing it. They're making profit out of it, and this is too bad. So let's circle back to the issue of stuff that's going on in Africa that is supposed to be called war, but the West downplays it and call it conflict, and many people die. In Africa, it's like, you see, in a day, somebody, like what happened in Nigeria recently, where 200 people were killed, and it doesn't. The West didn't talk about it much, but if it's the West that 200 people died in a day, you know what I mean? This is gonna dominate the news for the whole month. But Africa, in some African countries, war there is not conflict. So we should say it as it is. Conflict going on there is not. There's a war going on there is not conflict. If all the stuff going on in the West are war, why not for Africa? Thank you for watching. Peace.